Hello and welcome to another Decisions in the Making video, a series I want to revive. I recently noticed that I was not really satisfied with my personal air combat performance. Sure, I had good sorties with many victories, but at the same time lost a good chunk of aircraft or got killed. So I went back and looked for the reason. The first reason I identified was that I got overconfident, staying in a situation when there was a lot of chaos and I thought I can overcome that chaos somehow. Another reason was that I adapted my fighting style according to the bad visibility and the pilot physiology. That led to a riskier fighting style. It was hard to spot aircraft below, and even if I spotted some things, it was hard to attack them. A high-speed attack run meant a lot of G and blacking out. When surprised at high speed, there was no evasion possible, since any turn meant G beyond the pilot's capabilities. So instead of coming in with more energy, I flew into situations on equal energy and hoping for the best, relying on my piloting skills. However, this can only compensate for a lack of situation awareness to a certain extent. Both visibility and G model got adjusted and are better now, so there's no need to fly that risky and I can go back to a more risk-averse fighting style. Since the start of December, I try to practice that on online servers, sometimes in a team and sometimes alone, basically relearning to make better decisions. And today I want to take you with me on a sortie in the BF-109 F-4. I want to share this relearning of the patient way. I'm flying alone on the Wings of Liberty server in a Battle of Moscow setting. Clouds are rather thick, sun is relatively high up for winter, seems like late morning maybe. My F-4 is equipped with a fixed armor backplate, which limits my view to the rear massively. And yes, of course, in an F-4, especially in a Moscow setting, it's relatively easy to fly safely. But that is the point. It's not about the plane for me, it's about the decisions, and the F-4 is a good vehicle to relearn that. It's about the decisions, and in this sortie it worked out most of the time, but not always. Let's jump to the action. I took off in the south and climbed to roughly 4 kilometers of altitude and was patrolling the front line as I noticed that there was a lot of action on the airfield below me. I decided to trade my altitude for speed and try a high-speed, high-deflection shot on a MiG which was flying over the airfield. The tech view later showed a hit, however this must be very minor. After my pass I wanted to conserve energy, but foremost I wanted to build up my situation awareness again and push through. Since the backplate is blocking my view to the rear, I roll my aircraft around to check my SIGs. But in the end I'm fine. In retrospect, I would say this dive was fine for the most part, but what I didn't like about it was that I dove after the MiG without checking my current altitude for enemies. Any enemy fighter could have seen me and would have been now in a good position to attack me. However, he wouldn't have been able to follow that initial dive. That was just too fast. But now I just climbed back up above the clouds. I want to attack that fight over the airfield again. I notice how a MiG is diving in front of me into the clouds and I see how he tries to enter a fight on the deck. This time I check my altitude and surroundings. But I'm not able to get guns on the MiG and I push through. Trying to get him here would have bled too much speed. I climbed back up and observed the situation, checking my SIGs and making plans how to attack one of the Soviets below me without too much risk. The fight is moving westwards. That is good. That makes exiting the fight easier when I attack with high speed. I always want to exit the fight towards my own lines when possible, at least not towards the enemy lines. But this fight goes straight west and I decide to dive in. Arriving on the deck I notice how another 109 is chasing the MiG I target. I briefly thought about pulling back up, but then I see how the 109 is still quite far away from the target and I'm much faster. A risky move nonetheless, since it's to be assumed that the 109 can't see me, but since I'm that fast I continue the chase. The MiG is chasing another 109 and changes direction 2 times. At the current speed my 109 has a rather low roll rate, so those maneuvers are hard to follow. I close in to approximately 150 meters and then I shoot. Luckily for me, his aircraft, or at least something on his aircraft, explodes, setting the aircraft ablaze and he goes down. That is the first kill for me. I push through and build up my situational awareness again. As I climb back up, I notice IL-2 just a little higher into my right. I immediately think that what I do now is a mistake. I should not turn in. I should turn away, climb and then attack. But stupid overconfidence overcomes me and leads to the riskiest part of this sortie. As I turn in, I feel how bad this decision was, but I have also the feeling that it's now too late to correct it again. I know that I will be in range of the IL-2 in the next couple of seconds. I throttle up to grab as much altitude as I can. And this is a moment I notice that there is a MiG next to the IL-2, and I also see that the MiG has not enough energy to follow me. Bullets are now passing my aircraft, only missing by a few meters, but seconds later the IL-2 and MiG fall away. This IL-2 is, by the way, the IL-2 1941. This model is particularly light and can be used as a makeshift fighter. However, all this drained my SA, my situational awareness, and just seconds before the MiG on my 6 can shoot, I notice him, I push the nose down, roll and anti-dive and run away. And only now I realize how many enemies are really here, but I can escape to safety. Turning into the IL-2 was not a good idea. I climb back up and notice another fight over the treetops. I pick up a lot of speed and I follow. I check my 6 while turning and diving in. And this is another paint train on the deck. Paint trains are easy to attack when sticking to basic rules. Don't turn with them, don't stick with them, and come in with much more speed. So I dive in while my aircraft is shaking from the high speed. I notice that the train consists of IL-2s and MiGs. MiGs are more dangerous, so I decide to go for a MiG. Luckily for me, the first hit blew him apart right away. But as I look straight ahead again, I see a tree line awfully close. I trim my plane tail heavy, zoom over the trees and observe how the MiG goes in. I now notice how a Bf-110 is in front of the entire paint train and gets harassed by IL-2. My first thought is to pull the stick back and roll in right away to help, but instead I scan the airspace behind him and notice how the area is full of red fighters. All low, but there's no realistic possibility to help and rescue this Bf-110. The gaggle of fighters pull up and one leg basically stands still on the peak of his climb. Perfect setup. Another 109 noticed that as well and hits him quite nicely, and I give him the decisive blow by hitting him again with cannon and machine gun. And he crashes into the trees. That's kill number 3 for this sortie. I'm back at altitude as I notice a very slow fighter just above the clouds, traveling from east to west. If something travels that direction, it's likely an enemy. I already want to position myself as I notice a contrail coming in from the north. If that is an enemy which sees me, I'm in a really bad spot. So I briefly keep an eye on the contrail. I lose the Lowe guy momentarily, but after I'm sure the contrail dude just keeps trucking, I reacquire the Lowe target and go for the attack. I now ID the aircraft and it's a Soviet Lend-Lease Hurricane. He breaks away and dashes for the next cloud. I zoom back up and take another look on the contrails, now sure that there will be no danger from that guy. I'm able to get the Hurricane back inside and go for the attack again. I'm also able to follow him through the clouds and hit him in the pass. His pilot is killed right away, marking the 4th kill of the sortie. In the last clip of today, I'm on the lookout for kill number 5, of course. I want the ace in the flight now. I scanned the skies and noticed very late that there's an I-16 on my 6, but I also noticed that he hasn't built up a lot of speed. So I just open up the throttle, outclimb him and try to get some shots in a high G attack. He tumbles away while evading and is now followed by a gaggle of 109s. I go for one last attack, but my pilot is now very tired from the last couple of passes and I almost black out. I have to pull out of the dive quite carefully. I keep my speed and head away from the action and I head for home because I'm now, sadly, low on fuel. A nice sortie, a successful sortie and mostly achieving what I plan to do. Not always. With a few hairy situations, but that is quite normal when you fly alone. I hope you like this format and I also plan to upload sorties which are more difficult or of course feature other aircraft where you can't just fly away or climb away. I hope I see you in the next one.